I still remember the moment everything shifted. It wasn't a performance review or a staff meeting. It was one sentence, whispered when no one else could hear. "I just don't like you." Simple. Sharp. Deadly. It was the last thing I expected from Eva, the store manager who had once introduced herself as my mentor. I was 34, newly promoted to assistant manager at Harper & Row, one of the most popular lifestyle stores in downtown Seattle. The job paid well, the location was perfect, and I had fought hard to earn that position. Walking through those glass doors each morning had once filled me with pride. That pride didn't last. Eva had been with the company for 5 years. To most, she was either respected or feared. During my first few weeks, she was professional, even warm. She taught me the ropes, praised my early efforts, and offered helpful feedback. But things changed quickly. The compliments stopped. The smiles faded. In their place came cold stares, constant corrections, and public reminders. "Remember, Julia, I trained you." She said it so often it began to sound like a warning. At first, I questioned myself. Was I too sensitive? Misreading things? I worked harder, stayed late, revised reports, and triple-checked every detail. Still, it was never enough. Every minor slip, real or imagined, was treated like a personal betrayal. Even so, I kept pushing forward. I introduced new procedures that boosted our monthly sales by 12%. Mr. Daniels, the owner, even visited to congratulate me. I'll never forget how Eva's jaw tightened when he praised me in front of the staff. What I didn't know then was that it wasn't just professional jealousy. It was personal. Eva wasn't just close with Sandra, the general manager who worked opposite shifts. They had been friends for over a decade, transferred together from another store, and backed each other without question. That web of loyalty was invisible to me, until it caught me. The final blow came on a quiet Thursday evening. I was wrapping up closing paperwork when Sandra called me into the office. "Julia, I don't think this is working out," she said, voice thick with artificial sympathy. "Excuse me? You're still making mistakes. Mistakes someone in your role shouldn't be making." She listed petty infractions, misfiled reports, minor scheduling errors, none of which had been documented or discussed. Many weren't even true. I tried to defend myself, but her mind was made up. I stepped out of that office stunned. 6 months of dedication and results, gone in one conversation. As I rounded the corner to grab my bag, Eva was there. She leaned in, voice a breath against my ear. "I just don't like you." Then she walked away, leaving me frozen in place. It wasn't sadness I felt. Not yet. It was betrayal. I had respected her. I had tried to learn from her. And she had gutted my career without blinking. I called Mr. Daniels that night, hoping he would intervene. He sounded sympathetic but distant. "Sandra runs the day-to-day," he said. "I trust her judgment. Honestly, if things hadn't been so tense between you and Eva, maybe we could have worked it out." There it was. The narrative. Eva had painted me as the problem all along. I packed my things quietly. I didn't cry. I didn't plead. But I didn't walk away defeated either. That weekend, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every strange glance, every backhanded comment, every time Eva had undercut me. And I started connecting dots. By Sunday night, my grief had hardened into resolve. Eva thought she had buried me. But she didn't know who I really was. On Monday morning, I started digging. I remembered whispers from coworkers, something about Eva hitting a rough patch a few months ago. I hadn't paid attention then. Now, it felt like a trail. I opened my laptop and subscribed to a background check service. It didn't take long. Evelyn Walters. DWI arrest. Crestview County. 3 months prior. I stared at the screen. In our industry, any criminal charge had to be reported to the state licensing board. It wasn't a suggestion. It was law. A DWI wasn't just a stain, it was a breach. Grounds for immediate suspension. She hadn't reported it. And now I had proof. My heart pounded as I stared at the screen. Was this revenge? Was I sinking to her level? No. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. I hadn't lied. I hadn't schemed. I had done my job. She had stolen it from me. I called Mr. Daniels. My voice didn't shake. "Mr. Daniels, I think there's something you need to see." He listened quietly as I explained. When I told him about the DWI, his voice changed. "Are you sure?" "Positive. It's public record. She has a court date next month." Silence. "That's serious," he said. "She didn't disclose any of this." "According to policy," I said, "her license should already be suspended." "Thank you, Julia. I'll handle it personally." I hung up, heart racing. I didn't know what would happen next. But I knew the game had changed. The call came early Tuesday morning, just as the city was waking up. I was barefoot in my kitchen, clutching a half-full mug of coffee that had long gone cold. I answered on the second ring. "Eva's been let go," Mr. Daniels said, calm but firm. My breath caught. I leaned against the counter, heart pounding. She violated company policy by not disclosing her charge. I blinked. The words echoed in my mind. "I owe you an apology, Julia. I should have looked deeper. If you're interested, I'd like to offer you Eva's position, full manager. Same salary Eva was making. Actually, more." For a moment, I was speechless. I hadn't expected this. "Not so fast." "Thank you," I finally said. "I'd be honored." He wasn't finished. "Sandra and I had a serious talk. She's staying on for now, but under much closer supervision. We'll be making adjustments." Adjustments. That word hung in the air, full of implications. We agreed to meet the next morning to sign the paperwork. When I ended the call, I stood there for several minutes, letting it all sink in. Relief was only the beginning. There was something else. Power. Not just the kind that comes with a title or a keycard. The kind that comes from surviving something that was meant to break you, and coming out stronger. Eva had tried to destroy me quietly. But she didn't know who she was dealing with. The next morning, I arrived at the store earlier than usual. The air was crisp, the parking lot still empty. I stood at the entrance for a moment, taking it all in. The same doors I once walked through as assistant manager now opened to something entirely different. Mr. Daniels was already inside, waiting at the front counter with fresh paperwork and a professional but warm smile. "Congratulations," he said, offering a firm handshake. "It's officially yours now." As I signed the contract, I couldn't help but ask, "Does Eva know?" He gave a slight smile. "Not yet." He handed me one last document, then paused. "By the way," he added casually, "Eva will be stopping by today to pick up her personal belongings. She doesn't know you've been promoted yet." I arched a brow. "You're kidding." "You're welcome to stick around for it," he said, clearly amused. A slow smile crept across my face. "Oh, I wouldn't miss it." For the next hour, I went about the morning routine, checking inventory, reviewing the staff schedule, organizing the register. But everything felt different. The store felt like mine. Most of the staff weren't aware of the leadership change yet. I greeted them as usual, kept my tone light, my demeanor unchanged. I didn't need to make announcements. I wanted Eva to see it herself. The door chimed right at opening. I didn't need to turn around. I knew that sound, that rhythm of heels against tile. Eva entered, a cardboard box in hand. Her expression was unreadable at first, but when she saw me standing at the counter, keys clipped to my belt, manager binder open, her face faltered. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice tight. I turned slowly. "Working. A beat. As the new store manager." Her lips parted, but no words came out. The color drained from her face. She looked around the store, searching for backup. But there was no Sandra. No allies. Just me. She took a step forward. "I don't know what you think you did, but you won't last. You're not like me." I met her gaze, steady and calm. "You're right. I'm not like you." Her fists clenched. I could almost see the gears in her head spinning, trying to find a narrative, a way to rewrite what she was seeing. But she couldn't. "Your things are in the office," I said. "You'll want to grab them before your court date." She narrowed her eyes. "What did you just say?" I tilted my head, almost playfully. "Good luck on the 14th. Her mouth twitched. For a second, I thought she might scream. Instead, she turned on her heel and stormed into the back. I waited by the register, organizing receipts, pretending to be calm. But inside, I was buzzing. She emerged minutes later, the box heavier than before, her steps hurried. She avoided eye contact. She was leaving. Not just the store. The story. The power she once had. "Eva," I called just before she reached the door. She paused, turned slightly. "Thanks for the training. It came in handy." And then she was gone. The door closed behind her with a soft click. I stood there, letting the silence wash over me. It was the sound of a storm passing. The staff began arriving. I moved through the floor with purpose. Smiles came easier. Conversations flowed freely. The air felt different. For the first time in months, the store felt like home again. And I wasn't just stepping into Eva's role. I was rewriting everything she had tried to control. And I was just getting started. 2 weeks after Eva's exit, the store was still adjusting to the absence of her shadow. Staff moved differently now, shoulders less tense, smiles more frequent. People laughed out loud again, no longer watching their backs every time they spoke. Even Sandra, once Eva's closest ally, had softened. But with Eva gone, something unexpected happened. All eyes turned to me. At first, it was subtle. A question here, a glance there. But gradually, it became constant. Every issue, every complaint, every decision, they brought them all to me. And I answered. Carefully. Confidently. But privately, I wondered, did they trust me? Or did they simply need someone else to fear? One Thursday morning, I arrived early and found Miguel, one of our most experienced sales leads, rearranging a display that had already been signed off. "Morning," I said, setting my bag down. He jumped slightly. "Oh, Julia. Sorry, I thought the layout might work better this way. I didn't mean to change anything without approval." His tone was cautious. Apologetic. It hit me like a punch to the gut. They weren't just adjusting to a new manager. They were recovering from the last one. I pulled up a stool. "Miguel, you don't have to walk on eggshells with me. I trust your judgment." He gave a small smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Thanks. It's just old habits, I guess." Old habits, ones Eva had drilled into them. Later that day, I called a team meeting. Not about procedures or sales goals, just to talk. We met near the back stockroom, sitting on overturned crates and a few folding chairs. I kept it casual. "I know things have been different lately," I began. "I want to make sure this place feels safe again. Not just physically, but emotionally." There was a long pause. Then Emma, our youngest associate, spoke up. "It's already better. But sometimes, it's hard to trust that it'll stay that way." Others nodded. Quiet agreement. Sandra, seated near the edge, looked down at her hands. "I should have said something sooner," she murmured. "About Eva. I let things slide. I backed her when I shouldn't have." Her voice cracked. "I thought I was doing the right thing by staying neutral, but that wasn't neutrality. That was silence. I didn't expect the apology. Not in front of everyone." "Thank you," I said simply. The air shifted. It felt honest. Over the next week, I made changes. Small ones at first, rotating responsibilities so no one felt cornered, adding anonymous feedback forms, encouraging breaks. I didn't overhaul everything overnight. I rebuilt trust brick by brick. And gradually, it worked. Staff started offering ideas without waiting to be asked. They stayed a little later not because they were afraid, but because they wanted to finish what they'd started. The atmosphere buzzed again, not with tension, but with teamwork. I also made time to speak to each team member one-on-one. Not in a formal review, just conversations. I asked Miguel about his career goals. I learned Emma was saving up for school. Jason, our stock coordinator, had once studied design and had great ideas for store visuals. These weren't just employees. They were individuals, full of potential that Eva never cared to see. Then came the email. From Eva. I saw her name in my inbox and froze. My cursor hovered over the subject line, "For what it's worth." I clicked. Julia. You got what you wanted. Congrats. I suppose it was always going to end this way. I just hope you realize this job isn't as easy as you think. People will turn on you. Just wait. Eva. There was no apology. No acknowledgement of what she did. Just bitterness. I stared at the screen for a long time, then closed the message without replying. She was wrong about one thing. I didn't get what I wanted. I built what I deserved. Still, her words echoed. Not because I believed them, but because part of me feared she might be right. That weekend, I stayed late reviewing quarterly numbers. Sales were up. Customer satisfaction was climbing. By every metric, we were thriving. But the true measure of success wasn't in the spreadsheets. It was in the way Miguel greeted me now, with a relaxed grin and ideas about rearranging the store. It was in the way Emma stayed after her shift to help train a new hire without being asked. It was in the way Sandra started sitting in on team huddles, not as a shadow, but as a participant. On Monday morning, I arrived to find a thank you card on my desk. Inside was a short note from the staff. Thanks for turning this place into somewhere we actually want to be. It wasn't signed by any one person. It didn't need to be. Later that day, Sandra stopped by my office. I've been thinking, she said, hovering in the doorway. Maybe it's time I stepped back a bit. Let you lead fully. I nodded slowly. Whatever you need. I mean it, she said. You're good at this, Julia. Better than Eva ever was. We all see it. That meant more than she knew. By Friday, the store felt like a different place. Customers noticed. One woman told me during checkout, I used to feel tension here. Not anymore. It's inviting now. I smiled and thanked her. It was working. Eva's voice had once filled this place, not in words but in fear. Now, that echo had been replaced. Not with silence. But with something far better. Respect. Spring rolled in with longer days and a fresh wave of customers, drawn in by word of mouth and glowing reviews. The store buzzed with life again. New displays went up, team energy was high, and sales climbed steadily. From the outside, everything looked picture perfect. But inside me, something was shifting. As much as I had focused on healing the workplace, I hadn't taken time to examine what I was carrying personally. The residue of Eva's cruelty still lived in quiet corners of my mind. Not fear, exactly, but the remnants of doubt. One rainy Wednesday, I stayed late to finish restocking the new shipment. As I arranged new spring merchandise on the front table, Sandra approached, carrying 2 mugs of chamomile tea. You're still here, she said. I nodded. Just wanted to finish this up before tomorrow. We stood in silence for a moment, watching the storm outside blur the streetlights. I've been meaning to say, Sandra began, you've done an incredible job. Everyone feels it. The staff, the customers. Me. I looked over, surprised by the sincerity in her voice. Thank you, I said quietly. She set the mugs down and sat across from me. But I've also noticed you haven't taken a single day off since you took over. Not one. I smiled sheepishly. There's been a lot to handle. That's true, she said. But sometimes when we've been through something heavy, we overcompensate. We prove and prove until we forget what rest feels like. Her words lingered. That night, I lay awake thinking about how much of myself I had poured into proving I belonged here. Not just to others, but to myself. The next morning, I called Marissa. I think I need a break. She laughed gently. I've been waiting for you to say that. We planned a weekend trip to the coast. Nothing fancy, just fresh air, good food, and the sound of the ocean. When I told the team, they cheered. Emma offered to cover closing shifts. Miguel insisted I not check my email. Even Sandra said, "Leave the store to us. You've earned this." That Friday, as I zipped up my suitcase, a thought hit me. I had built something that didn't fall apart when I stepped away. That was leadership. The trip was exactly what I needed. Long walks, slow mornings, books and naps, and zero agendas. Marissa and I sat on the beach wrapped in sweaters, watching the waves roll in. "Do you ever think about how far you've come?" she asked. "Every day," I said. "But I think I've spent more time trying to outrun the past than appreciating the present." She nodded. "You can stop running now. You're safe." That night, I wrote in my journal for the first time in years. I listed everything I had survived, every job, every betrayal, every fear I had faced and overcome. Then I wrote what I'd built: a store where people felt safe, a team that respected me, and a future that was finally mine. When I returned to the store on Monday, it was spotless. The display was fresh. Sales numbers had held steady. No emergencies. No panic. Just a well-run business. Sandra handed me a clipboard. "All caught up. No rush. Take your time." I thanked her and stepped into my office. On my desk was a small plant, succulent, simple, with a note from the team. "We're glad you came back. But we've got your back when you need to go." Tears stung my eyes. It was the smallest gesture. But it meant the most. That afternoon, I received a call from a regional executive. She had heard about the turnaround at our location and wanted to know if I'd be willing to mentor new managers. I said yes. It wasn't just about the title anymore. It was about impact. Over the next month, I met with young leaders from across the district. I told them everything I had learned, not just about running a store, but about running it with integrity. "Don't let fear become your compass," I told them. "Lead from empathy, not ego. And when you get it wrong, and you will, own it, and try again." One of them asked me, what was the hardest part? I thought for a moment. Realizing I was trying to win over people who never saw my worth in the first place. They nodded slowly. "And how did you stop?" I smiled. I looked in the mirror. And I decided I didn't need their approval to feel proud of who I saw. 6 months had passed since I first stepped into the manager's role, and the store had become something entirely new. Not just in the layout or the branding, but in spirit. It no longer bore traces of the tension that once clung to every shelf and corner. It was alive. Collaborative. Ours. On a bright Monday morning, the regional office sent a representative to tour the location. Her name was Dana, and she arrived with a clipboard, designer flats, and sharp questions. I welcomed her with a firm handshake and a smile I hadn't worn out of necessity, but of pride. Dana surveyed the store with narrowed eyes and soft hums of approval. She spoke to each team member individually, including the newest hires. She even sat in on our team huddle. When she finally asked to speak privately, we stepped into the break room. "I've visited a lot of stores in this region," she said, setting down her clipboard. "Very few feel like this." "Like what?" I asked. She smiled. "Like people want to be here." She wasn't wrong. And I hadn't done it alone. We had built it together. Dana pulled out a document from her bag. "Corporate's expanding the mentorship program you joined. They want you to help shape the curriculum. Workshops, coaching, remote consulting. It's a big commitment. You'd still run the store, but you'd be developing leaders across the country." I stared at the paper, stunned. My name was listed at the top of the proposal. "You'd be helping to define what leadership looks like in this company," Dana added. I thought of Eva, how leadership had once meant fear and control. And then I thought of my team now, how leadership had become trust, resilience, and shared purpose. I signed the form. A month later, I stood in a conference room 2,000 miles away, looking out at a group of wide-eyed new managers. Some were nervous. Some overconfident. But all of them were listening. "Here's what I learned the hard way," I began. Leadership is not a title. It's a mirror. It reflects your insecurities, your strengths, your blind spots. And if you don't like what you see, that's where the work begins. Hands scribbled notes. Heads nodded. But it's not about being perfect, I continued. It's about being honest, transparent, willing to grow in public. Later that day, I received a note on hotel stationery from one of the participants. Thank you. I thought I had to become someone else to lead. You reminded me I just have to become more of who I already am. That night in my hotel room, I reread that note several times. Not out of vanity, but disbelief. Because there had been a time, not long ago, when I had believed the opposite. Back home, the store continued to thrive. Emma was promoted to assistant manager. Miguel began training as a regional merchandising lead. Sandra officially stepped back, choosing a part-time consulting role. It was working. The new hires didn't know the store's past. They only knew the present. And to them, I was simply Julia, the manager who expected their best and gave them hers in return. One evening, I received a letter forwarded from the corporate office. The handwriting on the envelope stopped me cold. Eva. I sat with it for a full 10 minutes before opening it. Julia. I don't expect a response. I'm writing because silence has a weight I didn't understand until now. I was wrong. About you. About everything. You built something I never could. I hope you realize that. That job meant everything to me. But I didn't know how to lead without fear. I'm working on it now. Truly. I've started over somewhere new. I hope you can forgive me one day. There was no bitterness this time. No pride. Just truth. I folded the letter, placed it in the same drawer as the thank you cards from my team. Not because I needed to hold on to it, but because it marked something important. Closure. One Saturday afternoon, our district held a celebration for top-performing locations. Our store won the Community Culture Award. They called me up to receive it, and for a moment, I couldn't move. The applause, the lights, it all blurred. Then I saw Emma cheering, Miguel clapping like his life depended on it, and Sandra wiping a tear. I stepped up to the mic. We didn't build this by accident, I said. We built it with intention. With honesty. With a belief that people deserve more than just a paycheck, they deserve dignity. More applause. And then quiet. Because I wasn't done. There was a time when I didn't know if I'd ever feel proud walking into work again. I thought I had to become someone else to succeed. But I learned that real leadership starts when you stop pretending and start showing up as yourself. I stepped down to a standing ovation. My team surrounded me in a flurry of hugs, high fives, and tears. That night, as I walked home through the warm spring air, I paused in front of the store. The window displays glowed softly. Inside, the shelves were neatly stocked, the floors freshly mopped. And reflected in the glass was a woman I barely recognized. Not because she had changed beyond recognition, but because she had finally come home to herself. Not just a manager. Not just a survivor. A leader. And her story was only just beginning.